As you guys should know by now, we are in the business of smashing the demeaning, the debilitating, the inaccurate stereotypes of age, because if we believe them, eventually we embody them. Most of us anticipate the supposed negative benchmarks of aging so completely now that we all but guarantee that they will come to pass.
Yeah, beliefs really make a big difference, don't they, Mark? I mean, research shows that those who have a positive vision of, for example, aging, live on average 7.5 years longer than those with a negative view of aging. And maybe even more important, those extra years can be filled with good health. They can be filled with passion. They can be filled with purpose. And we can talk about the opportunity of age all day long, and we can show you examples of men and women, one after another, who are continuing to grow and learn into their 80s and into their 90s. But every now and then, isn't it helpful to hear what's possible from one of the most respected experts in the world?
You know, Bill, it's a perfect segue, because that's what we're going to do right now. Dr. Michael Merzenich is renowned worldwide as the godfather of neuroplasticity. His groundbreaking research about 30 years ago overturned the then conventional wisdom that our brains lose the ability to grow and evolve after adolescence. He's the guy who showed us that the adult brain remains plastic and malleable at any age. He proved that you can teach old dogs new tricks.
and not only old dogs either, as if that's not a big enough contribution, Mark. He, as you know, he also applied the principles of plasticity to become the co-inventor of the cochlear implant, an invention that's restored hearing to more than 300,000 people who battle deafness. He's the co-founder of Scientific Learning Corporation, a company that's helped millions of school children who had language learning and reading issues. And he's the chairman and chief scientific officer of Posit Science Corporation, which is a company that develops brain training programs and assessments. It's just amazing.
Yeah, maybe one of the longest introductions we've ever done, Bill, but he certainly deserved it. This is a busy guy. He's an inventor on nearly 100 patents. He's the author or editor of hundreds of articles and books, and you've likely seen him on PBS in a series of documentaries on brain plasticity. So let's get with it as we welcome Dr. Michael Merzenich from his home outside of San Francisco. Doc, how you doing today?
Oh, it's very nice to be with you two guys, and make this sort of cross-country visit, as it were. It's great.
It is amazing. It is amazing what the pandemic has not only required, but in a way enabled, you know, as we all adapt. And, you know, speaking of adapting, let's start with brain plasticity, since you pretty much discovered it. How do you define it, doctor? Why is it important, and why is the ability good news for all of us?
Well, the brain changes as a function of use. It basically, every time you acquire an ability, every time you improve an ability, basically you're modifying your brain, and that change, and those changes in wiring and those changes in the way the brain is invigorated by it are the basis of that acquisition or improvement of ability. And you know, everyone knows that they have the capacity to improve at whatever they're interested in, at any age, at any time in life. So, why not? Why not engage your brain to improve? Because you have the capacity to continue to grow as long as you're on planet Earth. And that's what I try to do, and I think that's what everyone should be trying to do.
Well, I'm telling you, if we needed any kind of a real world example, Mark mentioned it just a minute ago, the pandemic really challenged us in ways we never expected, we never saw coming. And, one of the things that Mark and I talk about a lot is how many people lost their jobs, and it disproportionately affected adults 55, 60, 65 and up. And a lot of us have this thought in mind that it's too late to learn new skills, but science is telling us different, right? That new challenges and change in general is actually critical to healthy brain aging.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can always think of a challenge in life as a way to think about how you would redefine yourself and maybe, shape what you're doing. So it's a little bit more in line with what you really want to be doing. And it's also a chance for you to, you could say, reinvigorate yourself and re-identify yourself in a way that is even better and even stronger. And it's a time when you have to think about your attitude about life, an attitude about what you're up to, because you have every reason, a person has every reason to be positive and thinking about how they can make life better, how they can improve their circumstances in life. So don't be so discouraged that when you go back into that job interview or you go back into that office, you're a pain in the butt. Go back with spirit, and or go into that job interview with spirit, and basically look for how you can reposition yourself to be even more effective and to do something even more interesting, and maybe redefine yourself a little bit so that life is just a little happier and better for you.
Speaking of brains, we are talking to a big brain today, Mr. Schaefer. This is a guy, Dr. Michael Merzenich, who has literally won almost every scientific and bioengineering award that there is. What I like about him, as you can see, he's an extremely personable guy who is able to talk to smaller brains like yours and mine in a way that we can relate. So let me ask you this, Dr. Merzenich. You have helped us believe that more is possible, but how much is reversible? I mean, let's just say that we bought into the ageist messaging. We've not made the best lifestyle choices. We've not challenged our brains. We're not mentally nimble. Is it harder for us to regain that dexterity, the speed,
right,
the powers of memory that we've lost?
Well, we began doing experiments quite a few years ago in animal models. And what we did is look at animals that were near the end of life. And we looked at their brain in many, many ways, ultimately more than 30 ways. And basically these related to these things we were looking at related to the function of the brain. They related to the physical status of the brain. They related to how fast and how accurately the brain was in operation. We looked at all sorts of things that related to brain. We also looked at how the blood supplied nutrients to the vascular system applied nutrients to the brain, how the brain was protecting itself by its immune response, a whole series of things like this. And we asked ourselves, well, what is different in an animal near the end of life from an animal in the prime of life in its brain? And the answer was everything was different. Everything we measured was different. And then you say, well, how many of those things advantage that older animal? And the answer is none of them. Everything advantages a disadvantage. Then we ask, well, how many of those things are reversible? How many of those things can we drive back in the direction, you could say, in a youthful word direction? And the answer was everything is reversible. And most things are reversible, so the brain goes pretty much all the way back to being, you could say, a pretty young brain again. So, and that just doesn't just relate to the performance characteristics of the brain, how reliable it is, how fast it is, how accurate it is, how complicated how it deals with complicated things, but also relates to its health. How well is the vascular supply? How well is it connected? How well is, all of these things that relate to its physical health, to its physical status. Things regrow, things resprout, things change in a positive way so that brain looks like a young brain again. So basically, that's another way of saying, and then we've extended these experiments extensively in studies in human brains. That's another way of saying that God or Mother Nature designed your brain to be plastically reversible. So whatever your struggles are, you have the potential for being stronger, for being more effective, for being better, for being more reliable and more powerful. So why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you work at being better and stronger and more reliable? And basically, I've been dedicated in life for quite a while to trying to help people see a path to doing that. That's what, stronger brains. That's what Brain HQ. All of my efforts have been directed to delivering the goods to children and adults that basically need to go to the brain gym or need to do, engage in life in ways that can change their life for the better.
It's an amazing message. I mean, it's one that we all need to hear, and it's very empowering. I almost hate to do this now, Doc, but I'm going to bring it up. It's the D word, the one thing that we fear most as we age, and that's dementia. I know there's studies out there that where people have not shown any symptoms, but after they passed away, when their brains were examined, they had the amyloid. And other indicators of dementia, but they didn't show any outward effects. Is even dementia something that is possible to overcome?
Well, there are preliminary studies that indicate that you can delay or reduce the probability of progression to dementia by exercising your brain in a simple way. So, for example, there's a study that was conducted using a brain HQ exercise. The exercise is called double decision. If you went to Brain HQ, you'd find the exercise there. And basically, individuals about almost 20 years ago basically worked on that exercise for a total of 10 to 18 hours. And as a consequence, individuals that did that had about 20 to 48%, depending upon how much they used, reduction in a progression to dementia against people that didn't do that or did other things that seemed to be useful but weren't as effective. And so think about that. A person invests, trains their brain, and drives things plastically. And what they were doing in this case was improving their attention control, and they were improving the speed of operations of their brain. They about doubled the speed initially of their operation of the brain. Brain just working faster. And by the way, when you improve the speed of the brain, a lot of things have to change physically and functionally in order to account for that improvement of speed. So they were actually changing their brain physically and functionally. And then because now the brain was faster, it kept up its speed substantially. So when they looked 10 years after that initial limited dose, these are people in their 70s and 80s. Now they look 10 years later, and the brain is still faster than when they started 10 years before. And and that makes a big difference, obviously, in the progression in their health. Now, it should also make a significant difference in their longevity. As you said before, you'll live longer if you're taking care of your brain, obviously. There's nothing more important no organ is more important than your brain, except perhaps your heart, from the point of view of sustaining yourself over the long run.
We're speaking with Dr. Michael Merzenich, the godfather of neuroplasticity. I just love to say that. And Doc, you mentioned Brain HQ a couple of times, which I know is a platform you've developed where people can, exercise their brain. We will provide links to all of that. But let me ask you something. Are there a couple simple things that we can do? Because I have read that, something as simple as brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand learning to tap dance if you've never done it before can be good. But what can we do to facilitate neuroplasticity?
The brain is begging for you to get out of your rut and get out of your chair, out of your seat, and stop watching those screens all the time and get out in life and learn new things, to acquire new abilities, to improve at things you really enjoy doing and get better still. It's asking you to engage its learning machinery, because that machinery is what is controlling, the very same machinery is controlling your attitude about you. It relates to how you're living your life, but it's also controlling your capacity to sustain yourself, because it basically is controlling plasticity itself. And you need to keep, you could say, energizing these changes in your brain in order to keep it lively and alive. So you need to basically have a life in which you're continually acquiring and improving your abilities. And think about how much fun you could have doing that. I mean, my wife likes to say I'm a person with 1,000 hobbies. Well, that's sort of kind of rather true, but I enjoy every damn one of them. So I don't see that as a burden in any way. I see that as a source of endless fun and entertainment for me.
And really what we hear you saying is, plasticity is what makes us who we are, isn't it? It's your hobbies, it's our experiences.
Exactly. And you want to retain your interest in life, and you want other people to retain interest in you. It's a real good idea that you continue to grow. And you continue to grow in your understanding of things, your understanding your ability to do things and understand how things operate in the world. And so I'm working now on welding. I think I might be a pretty good welder. I might generate some sculpture that I'm not too embarrassed by. But, whatever it is, my garden is in tip-top shape. I want to tell you, it's better than ever. And, and of course, COVID, it contributed to that, like a lot of people out there in your audience. But I mean, it's all about continually advancing yourself in your ability and your brain and your understanding of things, of course. I mean,
I love that, Bill. I love that he's invited us to Northern California because I want to see this welding. I fancy myself. I fancy myself an abstract painter, Doc, and I've never done it. But but it's something that I want to do. Let me ask you this: another pandemic-related question. It's obvious that you're enjoying this. I mean, I think that's what makes you who you are, and I think we've learned, from the pandemic that social connection is more important than we even knew before. How important is social connection, interhuman reaction, and love to the health of our brain?
It's incredibly important and valuable to us. Of course, it's not easy for everyone to be broadly socially connected. Some people, unfortunately, can be homebound, and it can be difficult for them to get out enough or get out as much as they'd like to. It's a wonderful thing that we have, strategies that we can play out on the internet to still make connection. But actually, social connections are extremely important. We've done studies in people that are very deep in struggles in life, and we've been able to help them cognitively and in their performance field in all kinds of ways, in a wonderful way, and still they're not happy. And they're not happy unless we repair their ability to operate effectively socially. And because so much of our joy, so much of our happiness comes from our connection with other human beings, and from our interactions with them, and from our listening to them and telling them our stories and listening to their stories. And so it's really a really important aspect of a healthy life and a healthy, vigorous life. So, when you think about all of those things that you're doing in which you're acquiring and improving your abilities, well, do some of those things with other people. And I do like to keep my wife and Diane like to keep our door open, and anyone that shows up is welcome there. I want to tell you that that's literally true. And because anyone showing up is basically going to be a subject of interesting conversation and engagement.
And that's fantastic. And Mark and I will both be there on Saturday. Saying that and being able to talk to you like that, Doctor, I mean, doesn't it seem, I don't know, it seems a way to me that as you age, it's almost like if you're not serious, if you're not being serious, thinking about the major issues coming ahead, people assume that you're irresponsible or that you're not doing life right. But you talk about the joy of becoming childlike again. What does that mean, and how do you balance those?
It means exactly that. Because what we do is we have a tendency to grow into older and older forms of we enter a zombian phase. I take a walk every morning, and when I'm in the city, I walk in my beautiful neighborhood in the city. I make that walk different every day, so I walk on a different path. So I'm trying to master the area of the city I live in, know every detail of it, really look at it, smell it, feel it, hear it, listen to it. But I pass people on the street. And I would say 30, 40 years ago in my daily walk, people generally nodded to me or greeted me or indicated that they were a human interacting with another human being. And I invite that. I try to make people smile. I try to make people respond to me, but they don't. Often they don't. They're just totally within themselves. Now, what the hell kind of life is that, to be totally within yourself? To be totally removed from all of the things out there, all of the wonders out there that are all around you. Be like a child again. Really be connected with the world. Really be connected and open your eyes and be spirited and be full of it. And you'll be amazed what you'll see out there. I mean, there's something wonderful in front of you almost every moment if you just look for it or smell it or aware of it or awake to it. And I like to tell people, go out in your neighborhood and just look in your mind and reconstruct what's there in your mind, and then go out and look at it. And what you'll commonly see is there are all kinds of things there you've never seen. And why did you never see them? It's because you're living life out to lunch. Now, in the natural human state, we were not designed to be living life out to lunch. You couldn't afford to be. We're meant to be alert. We're meant to be alive. We're meant to be awake. We're meant to be looking for opportunity. We're meant to look for beauty. And I strongly recommend that you think about how you could do that in your life. if you took care of your brain in the right way in real life, you'd never need to go to the brain gym like Brain HQ. Things would take care of themselves. So, I hope that there will come a day when you don't have to worry about going to a damn computer to deal with your brain issues. Now, most people are advantaged by that. And maybe it's necessary for a lot of people to do something like that. But hopefully,
Hey,
in the future world, it won't be necessary.
As we wrap this up, and I think you probably touched on some of it, but what have you learned about life? Because obviously you're an observer of life in addition to be a researcher, and maybe just even taking this out of the context of brain health in general. In your estimation, sir, what makes for successful aging? What makes for a life well lived? What's the moral of the story?
Well, I came from I grew up in a Christian ethic, or you could say in a social ethic, where other people mattered, and where you could say we thought about life as being a life in support of the group, in support of the common, and that basically that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in having led a life, first of all, that is to the benefit of the other people around me, that I'm a positive force, that I'm a contributor, you could say, to the group, that I'm valued in my social group and in my society, but also, I also have a life that's purposeful. I have a life in which I'm doing things that matter to me, and because they matter to me, I'm self-evaluating myself, and I'm never completely satisfied, but in general, I think I've made progress, and so I think what it all comes down to is your own self-evaluation of the worthwhileness of what you're up to, and what your influence in the world is, and how you are contributing in the world. And I would say you two men are doing something very valuable here. And I'm sure you should have a very positive self-appraisal as actors on the stage of life.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you for that. And thank you for the contributions that you have made to everybody's life, because I think the one thing Bill and I harp on more than anything else is, what the mind believes, the body embraces. And, anything that we can do, or someone like you can do, to help people understand that, we can believe more, which will enable us to embrace more. So, sir, thank you so much for your contribution. We greatly appreciate your time.
And I very much appreciate talking to people that do have this understanding, and keep telling people about it, because it's all about helping people find a path to a better and happier life.
Well, amen. And folks, I know you want to learn more about the doc here, so let me send you to his website. It is Michael Merzenich, Merzenich, michaelmerzenich.com. You can check out his blog on thebrain.com. And I think either one of those sites, or both of those sites, will lead you to, the other initiatives that he has going on. But